Hello everyone. Tonight I'm streaming my setup with Bitwig and Usine. So I'm kind of combining two DAWs, and the main driver usually is Bitwig for me, for linear production, more typical stuff. And then when I want some interesting sequencing methods like modular setup and so on, stuff that you can't really do well in Bitwig's grid, because as you know, probably in Polygrid we can use all the gates and pitches, everything, and just sequence stuff within grid. But if we just want to use it for straight up MIDI output, there is now MIDI output in Polygrid, at least for now, and you can hack around it, use a replace device to generate MIDI notes, but it's really not efficient because grid runs in not only in audio rate all the time, so all the modules are running at audio rate, and you don't really need that much resolution when dealing with logic stuff and media data, and especially if it's 4 times oversampled, that's a bit overkill. So I'm just gonna check if my audio actually works. So far I don't think I have any people watching, so I have to just check it myself. Yes, it seems like I'm having my audio output just fine. Both mic and from my DAWs. So I sent a ping in Discord chat. If you are not on Bitwig server, I can share a link in YouTube, because if you are on the server, surely you already know about the stream if you've seen the ping. Just a second. I'm going to send the link in the chat. All right. So where should I start? You can actually ask questions in the chat. I will see it. I have laptop just for that. I'm using my desktop PC finally in a separate setup just for streaming and DAWs. So what I have here is my custom Euclidean sequencer with 4 lanes. It just outputs gates and some other logic events, like if the whole sequence just ended, will send gate, and that can be routed back at some parameter like randomization trigger. But let's actually start from scratch. What is Usine and how do you work in it? So instead of regular tracks, as in usual DOS, we have racks actually, and they are also multi-threaded across the CPU. So each rack is a separate thread on CPU. That's important to keep in mind, because if you are doing complex patches, patches themselves are not multi-threaded at the moment, not at this version as you see in the corner. So yeah, it's better to use kind of a modular racks, as I've showed this Euclidean sequencer before. It was a separate rack, and you can patch together different racks with modular outs like VCV modular environment. So this is kind of has two layers of modular interface. One is the patches that you can do. So in that sense, it's more similar to Reactor with Reactor blocks. Just the same way as you can make React blocks, you can make these patches, which are actually racks. And if you add these switches for show rack input and output, you can see that it unfolds these settings, which by default are not used, because you're supposed to use these handles inputs and outputs, which are called modular inputs outputs. And you can these are usually one type of module which you can switch which type it is. So one module, multiple types within this one module, so you can switch it on the fly. And as you can see, this amp changes the color depending on which type it is, and it may or may not have this ring, which is range value. So if you are inputting here something, you can scale it from 0 to maximum, basically. And you can then use it also for other stuff if you want to. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Probably should explain a bit more how stuff works in using from more basic steps. So how do you sequence stuff usually in using? Of course, you can drop some plugins here, like here dropping Vital. The first thing it shows when you drop the plugin is clear patch. If you are dropping it on top of any existing patch, it will prompt you to clear that patch and just open the plugin. So it will actually open the template of sorts of the patch and place the plugin on a placeholder and connect the various like MIDI input, audio output, maybe MIDI output if that's appropriate for the plugin. And there's this another option, clear and open plugin with learn, which might be a bit more handy version. I'll show you the difference. The first thing, you just get two switches. Actually, one is a button, another is a switch. Bypass just bypasses the audio or MIDI that passes through this patch. So if you double click this header or anywhere within the patch, you open this patching window. And here you see this two button and the switch. These are modules, but they are displayed in the UI. So some modules have UI representation. They are basically interface modules. If you open the browser, you can see there is a tab, and yeah, this interface design. All the modules here will be represented in UI, but that's not actually all the modules that will have some sort of UI representation. If I'm not mistaken, you get here generators, no, maybe sequence, sequence steps. This module also has its own UI, and you can change some of the settings, how it's represented. Of course, you can change the color. First thing you have is on this left panel, global color of the patch. So you can change sort of accent and all the adjacent colors all at once into certain hue that you may want. So you just close it to confirm, and then you can dive in this right side menu for more fine-tuned kind of design control. And there are actually snapshots, which are kind of templates. So you can save the settings that you may set up in this I tab. So I don't know how else you can call it. It doesn't really have a name. So basically it's how it's represented in the UI. You can have a transparent background if you want to. So you can actually kind of stack multiple patches on top of one on top of another if you want to, and there is on top control. So if you want one layer to be strictly on the back and one strictly on the top, you can just toggle this, and layers will switch the order, so to speak. There is no Z order control directly, but you can change it with this on top control. So yeah, the UI might seem a bit basic and rough around the edges in Usine, but you can customize it to a great degree. By default, it's all vector based, so you can scale it also like this. I'm just using mouse wheel, clicking on the empty spot of the workspace. I'm scaling the whole workspace in and out, and you can actually here in this size or dimensions tab see that I'm changing out. Am I changing actually the rack? Yeah, I think I'm changing the rack zoom scale. Whatever, you can change that value back to 1, or you can use this 100% button to reset whatever you selected to its initial zoom level. So you can just as well scale individual patches, racks, or the whole workspace. Basically, each element have its own zoom scale. Yeah, and you can always easily reset this like this. So I've shown you the default template sort of for the plugin that you drop. Here's another way to drop a plugin. Let's choose clear open plugin with learn, and you might notice that there's a bunch of knobs and a bit of displaced show and bypass buttons. Well, this kind of template actually was made maybe even for Hollyhock 2, so quite a few versions before. the current version of Usine. But yeah, you can easily fix this by either moving the knobs a bit down. Yeah, that works. So these are sort of macros that you can map on the fly. So here's all the parameters that are exposed by VST, and you just drag and drop it. So let's say here's my vital. I might not have updated it for a while, but whatever. Let's find, yeah, the one problem with this is there is no search, so you have to kind of search for it. But yeah, it just works like this. As you can see, I can use either my finger. As you can probably see, this circle representing my touch point, and this is one of the reasons I have kind of started researching Usine in first place, if it fits my needs or not. It supports multi-touch quite extensively. So the whole UI supports multi-touch, except for few kind of top-level UI elements, like my patch window. You might not notice is an actual window, but by default it's like a side panel that you can grab by a side and adjust its width, so to speak. But last time I checked, you couldn't adjust this border by finger for some reason, only by mouse. You can patch in this environment by touch, as you can see. Well, actually, for some reason recently, when I'm recording and streaming, my multi-touch input is lagging like crazy. Still haven't found out what's the reason. Maybe because I'm using touch via Bluetooth at the moment. I just don't have wire lengthy enough to reach my PC kinda all the way in the lower corner of the kitchen where I'm sitting at right now. So yeah, another thing I want to say about touch. So here's this mouse tab for the knob I'm just clicked. You can also adjust some parameters relative to touchscreen here. So you can enable touchscreen precision and multiplier. Also relative or absolute mode. So if I am clicking it to absolute, if I'm clicking here, so let's say on top or at the bottom of the box, you can see the value jumps a bit. So it kind of assumes position where I'm clicking. It's more obvious on faders rather than knobs. Yeah, not really suited for knobs as parameter. But yeah, there is that. Especially for XY pads, this might be quite important if you just want to move point relative to its original position, so there's no sudden jumps. Or if you actually want to jump new position, you're touching it. Where are you touching it, basically? And I believe for knobs specifically, there was a way to make it react for circular orbit, so to speak. And I believe it was actually here, but not anymore. Maybe it was deprecated, that feature. But as you can see, there is a lot of data. Mouse down, double click, so there's some gesture detection. If you slide down, left, right, and there's a ton more gestures that can be registered, and it outputs a specific number that's tied to gesture, which you can use if you want to make some custom touch controller that would respond on different gestures on one specific spot. So you could use a little bit of space on the screen for many different things, depending on how many fingers you are using or how you are moving them. Is it slow movement or is it fast movement? These kind of things usually have a different gesture name or has a number attached to them. I don't remember what the vertical mouse means actually. Yeah, I think that is, let's say I'm moving mouse left and right to adjust from minimal to maximum value. And if I enable vertical mode, then it's the opposite. I'm dragging down to adjust value to the minimum and up to the maximum. So there's that. Yes, so you can also apply this precision to also the mouse. So as you can see now, it's not jumping around as it used before. And on top of that, if you want precise adjustment just on this few, let's say, milliseconds of attack, but then as it goes longer, it would change more drastically. You can change the scale to logarithmic or exponential. And what it does is, as you can see, it only starts making big changes towards the second half of the knob position. So you have a big range for the majority of the first half of the values. It moves all the way right here, it's like 80%, and only here it moves about a second. Yeah, an exponential will do the opposite. So it will take quite a while to reach the maximum value after a certain initial movement. So that's quite useful to have, but also this is the mapping button. So if you map this thing to your MIDI controller, let's say, or actually some other knob, there is this mapping curve that you could adjust. You can use also logarithmic or exponential curve or power curve, linear, and you can draw as well. So make a custom curve for the mapping and adjust the minimum maximum range as well. So here pins that are assigned, OSC messages that are assigned, keyboard means regular computer keyboard, MIDI finally, and other stuff. So yeah, there's also a cluster. Tons actually of ways to bind anything within Usine. So it supports a multitude of protocols. It supports video, DMX lighting, OSC, as I've already said, some network protocols. So when I said video, you can use integrated video, so devices like webcams or other stuff that directly connected to your PC, as well as network addresses like IP cams, even on the internet. If it's a valid address and you have, I don't actually remember if it requires, if it supports logins, like if username and password is required, or it's just open-ended IP cams. But regardless, you can use network cameras, which sometimes is used on stage, stuff like that. So here's our synth, but before you can actually play with it, you need some sort of input. Here is device panel. First, in your global settings, you just scan devices and enable certain MIDI devices that you need to use in your session, and then they will appear here. Same with audio. You select driver, which device you're using, how many inputs and outputs it will show, and select specific inputs and outputs. As you may notice, there is surround 4, 8, 16 outs by default sitting here. As far as I remember, using actually supports up to 64 outputs and inputs. So you could set up some three-dimensional speaker setup in some club and play with that in Usine. And there are some ways to manipulate 3D matrices, so you could adjust volumes in 3D. So basically panning in 3D. So that's some cool stuff Usine can do. Besides playing with DMX lighting on the scene and even some VJing stuff. So let's say I can probably use, as I don't have any MIDI controller like hardware MIDI keyboard right in front of me at this moment. I have one in another room, but I'm not using it actually. I can use virtual MIDI port like loop MIDI, and let's say here in Bitwig I create track and set the output. Let's say I think I need to set it to hardware instrument, and here I can use output. Yeah, loop MIDI port. Just need to make sure I don't use input, MIDI input. Yeah, I'm using port 2 for the input in Bitwig itself. So I'm sending on port 1. And I have virtual touch keyboard in the Bitwig. So if I put this in here, input, and try sending a note. This is my glitchy touch input. Let me perhaps disable it. Yeah. Now it's... Oh yeah. Seems like there is some feedback going on after all. So I might want to use just touch keyboard as input for after all. Yeah. Now it seems to work fine. And yeah, of course, I need to enable the audio engine, which by default is tied to, yeah, master panel on off, and transport play also is mapped to space bar. So you could change that if you want to. Not always I want to stop the transport and audio engine at the same time. It would be quite abrupt, actually. So as you can see, I'm playing with Bitwig keyboard, sending using just fine. At the moment, I don't think my BPM is synced, and you can actually do it. Let's see. Synchronization. So my output, yeah, I can send loop MIDI port 1 to using. If it doesn't send itself, yeah, I want to disable this and enable, yeah, receive on this one side. So yeah, let's enable MIDI 1 for BPM syncing, and you can already see everything seems to be in sync except for transport. Right now using plays by itself, but as soon as I hit play, yeah, using just restarted at the same moment. And let's see if the clock is actually in sync. It may be a little bit off, but not by much. Last time I checked, it was spot on. Using some rhythmic based LFOs, other things generated within Usine and sending it back to Bitwig, usually was on time with Bitwig. So yeah, so there's this way to sync. Another way is not really available right now, but Usine actually have a VST bridge in development. It was held for reasons I don't know for now, but I do have alpha version of this bridge, and if I add it here, it's in audio fix. And yeah, let's find it. I think I need to enable all devices. Maybe I didn't add it to, yeah, here it is, bridge VST. Now, if I wasn't having tight enough sync, now spot on, but we need to make sure that in global settings, I believe, media, was it? No, yeah, there's separate media bridge tab in the settings, and I disabled handle media on purpose because that's the feature that was bugging out in this bridge, and I guess there was no quick and easy solution, so it was postponed maybe for version 5 that will come out in some time. And for now, there is no beta testing on version 5, so it's quite early in development. Yeah, so for now it shows, it doesn't show that it's connected for some reason. Let's try play another time. Oh yeah, so we are sending some sync messages. Let's also make some clips. Oh, right, send. Oh yeah, right. Because we are using audio device, we can't actually yeah, let me think about it. So I'm using this hardware instrument to send to using, and then here the audio should come out of this plugin. if everything works correctly. So I'm adding my MIDI lip right here. Let's use some old random one. Yeah, we are not getting audio from Bitwig at this moment. It might be the case that this bridge was deprecated at this current version of Usine, so it's not connecting because the bridge is pretty old. It was developed during beta testing of the Hollyhock 4 until things went wrong with it eventually, and it was kinda cancelled. Let me just check if there's another version of this. No, there's just one. And it was VST2 version 2. Let me just, in case, try to reload the Bitwig audio engine. Maybe this will start the sync. No, that doesn't work. And it's kind of a shame because I was actually exploiting this for exporting wavetables that I was generating in Usine and right into Bitwig. Yeah, that's a bummer. But there was some clue that bridge is still in the works, so fingers crossed on that one. So yeah, at least you are getting the solid MIDI synchronization within these DAWs, and for audio, yeah, you would have to resort to stuff like, I don't know if voice meter will suit the need, or virtual audio cable, or the software like that. But anyways, what fascinating about Usine, but you can use it for in combination with Bitwig, which is what I was getting at from the beginning, is you can make some custom sequencers and interfaces, like virtual MIDI interface in this environment to use with Bitwig. Say if you have a touchscreen like I do. That's quite a useful feature actually. So I've actually made a touch keyboard patch, which I will show you right now. So if I put this before Vital, as you can see, it plays the notes by itself before even receiving any input. And what special things you can do with it is apply a custom scale actually to it, like this. So it throws out all the unnecessary, so to speak, keys. And look at that. I'm starting with C2. I can lower that, and I'm getting all the way to D4 in just this compact space. Of course, I can increase the number of notes, and here I'm reaching all the way to D5. So that's another perk of having this ability to just get rid of unused notes if you are adhering to a certain scale. And you may notice that there is scale in and scale out outlets, in like input and output here. That's because I've made a few other patches and modules in Usine that also use this interface to create a scale or change it on the fly. So here's this patch, and yeah, it does the same thing, but you can route the settings like so, and as you can see now it has all the chromatic scale, usual one, and if we start to filter out, we arrive at the same layout that I was setting here. I was kinda lazy to make this thing represent what I was doing here automatically as soon as I'm patching scale out to this input. But at least it works anyway, and you can change the root node as well, so everything kind of moves relatively to the node, which can be handy to just shift to kind of relative scale. Yeah, and you can also push this button that I just pressed and use this Toolbox window. It's kind of a separate window within Usine, and you can place pretty much anything in it within the DAW itself, be it rec itself, like here I'm pressing rec, here's settings on the right side, and if I hit I icon, it says where, the first thing you look at. And there are some options. For rec, there are just few options, like workspace, the main environment that you are looking at, Toolbox here, and interface builder. Interface builder is also quite interesting thing to have. It has some issues with this frontal UI virus. As you can remember, I've patched scale input here, but now this patch is kind of floating independently, so this leaves this ghost kind of wire, which kind of reaches to where the input used to be. And yeah, since it's kind of hard to figure out how you would resolve this kind of UI, it's just left like that in this case. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who just suddenly drops the modular patch into a Toolbox window. But anyway, yeah, this is kind of handy to have, like, in this resizable window. You can always extend this keyboard as much as you want. I've set it to 32 because at 1080p usually it just fills up all the usable space you can have. And you can also see this quantize time setting, so you can not only quantize the pitch of the input but also play in time with triplets and so on, but you need to run transport for this to work. So yeah, sometimes it's kind of extends the notes longer. I'm not using touch right now because if I do, yeah, it not only works with delay, but it also spams multiple touch points all at once. My laptop actually sitting next to my touchscreen might be interfering with Bluetooth even more. So yeah, that kind of sucks. Gonna try another kind of connection next time. I'm gonna show some touch features. So yeah, one other thing this keyboard can do, MP button, you can see here. So let's see, we have Vital here, which does support MP if we enable it here. And we have this pressure and slide parameter. Let's just load any really wavetable and drop the pressure on the wavetable scan. I think this window should be on top. you can see pressure changing as I'm changing mouse across the F. Yeah, oh no, not F, it's G3. I'm not sure why it's skipping though. Probably same thing why my touch input is lagging right now. Oh no, actually this quantize feature probably does it. Yeah. So not only it quantizes your note inputs, so it's your notes are on time, but it also quantizes the MPE data. So the vertical orientation is reserved for pressure, and the sideways motion is reserved for slide, also known as timbre or timbre, however you want to pronounce it. So yeah, you can map it to something else, like here's some time skew. And yeah, now I'm using it like an XY pad, sort of. And it's all thanks to this scale button here. So as soon as I press on the certain key, I can move around to get this expression out of it. But if I disable key lock, I have this slide, so I can slide across nodes. I don't get the slide data anymore, but I still get the pressure. Which is still kind of fun. I deliberately omitted the pitch sliders here because it's actually hard to pull off in conjunction with this pitch quantization. So if I'm trying out certain notes, I have to know precisely which note is adjacent to current one and like accommodate to that when I'm pitch sliding. So A4 will slide to G3 and then F3, C3. So how will this gap translate? Should it glide or not? Stuff like that is kind of finicky and complex to program. Well, I say program, but yeah, look at this patch right here. So this is how I've built the whole thing. You can zoom out if you want to. So once again, it's kind of similar to Reactor in the way it's represented, but this sidebar with settings for each module is more user-friendly and more self-explanatory what each thing is doing than in Reactor or Maximus P for that matter. So that's why when I dived in using first time, it's clicked with me almost right away. But yeah, I could assemble simple subtractive synthesizer in Reactor, but it was total pain in the ass. I did it like in 2005 maybe, all the way back, and didn't really touch its modular interface science. No, I actually did try to dive into certain patches made in Reactor to see how they are made, and it was total mess, like trying to dive in someone else's code and there are no comments or anything. And by the way, you can add comments here. There is just a module that appears just in this patch window. You can make bigger font, smaller, and type anything here if you want to leave some comments on what you are doing in the patch for others to understand. And yeah, when you right click in page window, you get this usual sort of usual modules that you could use in this context. You would need some inputs, outputs, faders, snobs, buttons, etc. And yes, sampler, probably often used. There are actually a bunch of different samplers which can be also recorders. So yeah, it's something I would really want to see in Bitwig, and especially in grid sampler. Yeah, so I'm having a question, what's this and how it sounds? This is a patch for my custom touch keyboard, and it sounds in scale and in time if you quantize the time. Yeah, let's. If you're doing slides, actually, yeah, this time quantization is quite helpful. Seems the triplets are kinda slow. Should be a bit faster. Let's try some existing patch vital. Maybe something like this. I would probably use something with macros. So as soon as I see some macros, I would use that. These are some patches by Dataprot that I believe he did while beta testing. So some of these are quite old. This is mine patch. Okay. Maybe we could modulate speed of this LFO, for example. So let's map. We can see. Yeah, I can see myself using that. And actually, quantization on MP expression itself is working excellent here. So that's nice. 1 second. Закончи. Okay, let's continue. So what I was talking about? Yeah, if you disable MP, you are just outputting to single channel. So there's that. Let me check if my audio still works. Test. Let me just check the OBS. Yeah, looks like I'm hearing audio just fine. So alright, so here's one use case. I'm using this touch keyboard. It took me forever to build it actually, all this logic. You can also expand and fold each module to show more or less inputs and outputs it can have. So all this, each tab, usually each parameter that you can see in each tab on each module is exposed if you just cycle through this arrow. So basic, fully collapsed, only what's used, and full. This kind of all the modes you can use. So yeah, sometimes it's more convenient to have module tall like this if you have some modules that are better spaced all the way at the bottom part of the patch window. Either way, one thing you can do in Usine patching is, if you see the main settings, let me get this keyboard back to the rack. Yeah, so this is the patch. It's kind of odd that it doesn't show me. Oh yeah, if it's a top layer patch, then these are all the settings you are getting, like name. Does it save its settings in the preset? By preset, it actually means snapshot, which is another powerful feature of the Usine. And there are snapshots on the rack level, patch level, and whole workspace level. So let's see. If I try to tap in this empty space, and where did I see this? Show header? No, I don't think so. Yeah, show presets panel. So that's basically snapshots. And here on the top panel, you can see we can now save snapshots for the whole project, basically. And you should keep in mind that you need to keep track of what settings are you saving when doing that, because if it pulls too much data at once by loading a preset, all of a sudden it can result in best case scenario some delay that you didn't want. Maybe stuff will glitch out and you may have even some audio dropouts, CPU surges, and stuff like that. So yeah, when I'm patching, I prefer to keep track of this save in preset checkbox. Not sure actually did for this specific patch, but I do use snapshots. So let's say I've set this scale specific and I want to save it. Yes, I can. So here, this is my saved scale, and yeah, I actually can do the other way around, pass this scale into this quantizer. And if I had another rack with another VST and it's receiving nodes from some other source, we could also put this MIDI node quantizer there, and it will use all the same settings that this panel using, including key, if I'm not mistaken. It should, at least. This arrow, at least, it should, yeah. If it points to scale in, it will take the root node from the input. If you set it an other way around, then you just can have the same nodes but different root key for this instance of the module. And just for the flavor, here's a little color customization button. So yeah. Usine can be nice with this type with customization, but it can also be kind of annoying that you put many hours to just make it look like you want. And as you can see, it doesn't always look like you just chose the patch, choosing the global color, and everything inside it should change, but not everything actually. Some stuff might have hard-coded color, or in this case, this is a sub-patch. So you can place patch inside a patch, and this thing that I wanted to show you is polyphony. You can crank it up all the way to 64. So this way you can create polyphonic synthesizers and any kind of polyphonic patches really using. And unlike in grid, you have to manage voices manually here. So you can address each voice individually. Let me check if my keyboard patch, yeah, this one actually have 10-point polyphony. I say point because it's striking 10 fingers. So just for that purpose, I've used this trick to just duplicate this page 10 times over and make it accept array, and my array input in some cases just passes the value that's tied to the index of the voice that this patch have. So yeah, and you can individually access each instance of this patch. So you could even, after applying this polyphony, change entirely some of the instances or each instance if you need to do it for some reason. But yeah, if you would need to make some change that would need to be batch applied to the rest of the voices, you would typically edit the top level first voice, which is opened by default, and then press this apply polyphony, and then it will basically duplicate all over the game to the number of voices you've inserted. So it will basically rewrite all the instances with a copy of the first one. And apply and reset is used just for data. So if you just adjusted some data and some instances have conflicts of different data, you can use that to either apply new data or just reset whole patch to initial state. So all the voices are the same. Yeah, here for a change, I've used some comments to explain at least a bit of what's going on inside here. And yeah, one other thing, a nice thing that Usine have in the patching process is if you are patching some values that are sort of related and adjacent to each other, like you'll see here, left to right, height, basically position and dimensions of the objects are linked here. If I just drag this wire with holding shift and control, and when I put it in destination, all the rest wires are patched up automatically. And yeah, it's especially useful when you're doing some stereo patching. So you have one module which have, like, say, just stereo left and right outputs, and some effect module with two inputs. You just shift control patch one chord, the second one is patched automatically. And if it's multi-channel stuff, then it's all the more convenient to do this. And if you want to rewire stuff, then you hold shift and drag the cable out. You can put it back in. And in Bitwig, you do double click to do this kind of stuff, but it would, in this case, like here, disconnect all the cables from these outputs. Here you do it one by one. And alternatively, you could click on this central node of the cable and select cable this way, delete it this way if you want to, or select multiple cables and delete them. And also this node is used to bend the cable actually. If it gets in your way, you don't really like how it looks, you can always kind of bend the rules a bit, so to speak. So that's a nice feature actually. I kind of wish Grid had some way of doing this, or at least different modes on how the cables are laid out. Like if they would neatly cable manage themselves around the grid in the grooves between the modules. In some cases that will be really cool. But yeah, typically modular environments look more like this. So yeah, one other thing Usine have, apart from ability to place patches inside the patches and basic modules, you can actually add scripting modules. I don't know if I have, yeah, this one is actually a script, and you can see I actually asked someone on the forum for help and got this script from another user on the forum of the Usine. Well, the company is called Brain Modular, so yeah, you can find it on brainmodular.com. So what this does is combining my string arrays that I'm generating from two sources. One represents the notes like C, D, etc., and another array is representing octave, which each note in which octave it is. So in combination, it's like G#4 or 2, etc. And yeah, there wasn't a neat way to do it inside of Usine in some stock module, but it was possible with this script engine. It doesn't really take away any CPU. You can actually see in the corner I have like 2 and 7% CPU usage from this whole patch right here. And unfortunately you can't measure like side by side. Well, you can only open one window at a time, so you dive into a specific patch and see how much it uses the CPU. And in this case, this 0.24 would multiply by 10 because each instance uses up the same amount. And yeah, in your mind or in calculator, you would add up to calculate how much CPU uses specific spot. Yeah. So what else? You can, as you can see, put faders, knobs, and all sorts of interface modules. Here's pitch bend with symmetric fader. Here's the mod wheel integrated. There are XY part as well as drawing part, so you can draw stuff in it and it will follow the road of the path you've drawn. All these things can be used as controllers, so you can, just as I did this with this touch keyboard, this is basically XY path. Yeah, probably if you just press this find in patch, yeah, this is XY path, with just white one, and it tracks the points that I'm pressing, the coordinates to be specific, so it sees where I'm pressing at. I have some sort of quantization, so I divide whole length to number of notes that I'm having and taking account the width of this each note, which is fixed here. And this way I can track each note individually in one big XY field. So yeah, you can use all of that to just build a custom controller for Bitwig or anything really. Initially, I was planning on doing custom controller for Ableton Live, but after diving deep in Usine, I actually ditched Ableton Live entirely, because I mostly do live generative music. I rarely using MIDI clips and arranger these days. Just find it more fun to experiment in live environment, because I don't have too much free time usually. So like today, this night that I'm having right now, just sitting for 2 hours right now. I should be getting sleep already, but I can live with another half hour or so without sleep. So yeah, when you have just 3, maybe even 4 hours a day, it's not really enough to concentrate and make full arrangements. Maybe if I set this as a goal, but let's say the more I started to search for the shortcuts, so to speak, to just arrange music in live or perform it live and then edit the output afterwards, the less I try to spend time in arrangement, because that is the least fun part for me, at least. Spending time in the arrangement and thinking how things should evolve and so on. And speaking of arranger, in Usine you don't have typical linear arrangement. Instead, you have this grid. So not like Bitwig grid, but timeline grid. So these have sections which you can resize just visually if you want to. I don't know if it's enabled by default, but I just started it anyway. Each section can have fixed duration in seconds, minutes, milliseconds, or cycles, bars, beats, so in sync with the clock. And yeah, you set how many cycles or bars you want this section to last. I believe there was another actually setting for it. Maybe set tempo 2. Yeah, this one. So each section can have its own BPM settings, and what's more, there is a list of bars. So here you can see the bars on the top next to BPM, and here's my list of bars. So I could input 3 3/4 and 4/4, and it will cycle through them. I can make this list long, going on and on. So instead of just using one time measure, or rather time signature, I can use several one in sequence, and I can use even a bunch of sequences in each sequence section separately with different tempo and other things. So yeah, it can go pretty complicated if you want to. Then there is next section. It's like a follow action for clips in Bitwig or Ableton Live. You can see pretty similar options here, like previous, next, last, specific section, or random section. But I think there was also setting for loop. Yeah. So if I'm setting the next section, yeah, here, I can make it repeat several times before it goes to the next section, which is also neat. You can also make section pause, so it plays whatever you put in this section, and then this grid will set on pause and will wait for your manual action. So you might be activating the next section when you need it manually, and of course you can map that section with this button here to MIDI controller or C keyboard shortcut, which I used for one of my live shows, like the first one where I used Usine for the first time. Yeah, there are a lot of options how to do it, and you can do it in quantize mode. Yeah, you can see here. You can quantize the action of activating the section, which is pretty important if you want to be on time. And what you can put in section? Actually, you can put, let's say, I want this rack over here, so it will be only active during this section, but in this section the rack collapsed, it's not used. That's one basic thing you can do. But you can also drop presets here, and let's say I drop it here, chromatic scale, and then I just open up the list and can drag and drop from the list. I believe it also has a fade, which is kind of crazy. Not only you have snapshots, those are parameters you could save, but you can also fade them. Not fade out, I believe, but at least fade in. Let's see what happens if I just play it. Oh yeah, if I click with mouse on specific spot, I can just rewind inside the section in specific spot. So let's see what kind of transition is going to happen. Well, it just jumps. I guess there are no faders, so to speak, that need to be adjusted in a kind of linear fashion. And yeah, you get a little message on the top when the preset is activated. So yeah, considering that you can build stuff VCV rack style, you can see that you can actually arrange performance in the VCV style environments using the Usine. And yeah, let's actually open some workspace. Here's one where I was experimenting with my Euclid sequencer. And yeah, I used LFO to modulate number of pulses and steps in one of the lanes. And you can see it visually represented in this circular graph. And I just have this simple 4-lane sampler to activate specific gates along with it. But yeah, we can go further and generate some MIDI notes. And yeah, as I've said, you can also save snapshots. Let's say I want this preset as first one, and let's change some settings. Maybe like so. It sounds kind of terrible, but just for the sake of demonstration. So you pull out the list. Oh yeah, I think I've rewritten the initial preset I made. Whatever. Let's dial it all back to the reasonable values I had. Like so, I think. New. So yeah, I have it kind of backwards now. And let's say I need one preset to be active in one section and another in next section. So just select to just follow the next section. As soon as it switched to the next section, yeah, switch the preset. And not just how do I say it? These snapshots, they can also save which wires are wired where. You should probably use whole workspace snapshot for that. But either way, yeah. If you are patching in whole this modular environment VCV style, you should probably use workspace level snapshots anyway. Progress through your changes. I've actually made some CV gate to MIDI translation modules. Should be somewhere here. So here is how the add-on manager looks like. Yeah, I've loaded it, but just didn't download on this specific PC. Counter is another nice module that I made. Yeah, let's add this stuff also. So there is this guy in Usine community by the channel of Oliver, if I remember correctly is his name. He made a ton of user models. So beside the script module that I've shown you before, people can actually use SDK to write their own modules in C++ level. So that's basically on the same level the native modules are made. And yeah, you can go pretty deep with this stuff. Like yeah, here's my converter from CV gate. You don't even need pitch information really to generate notes, because you can just dial in some pitch and add some additional notes on top. But yeah, besides this one, you need also to convert this MIDI into the MIDI output. So we don't have the device to output to, but I've made a patch for that as well. So I need to make a new rec and just search for my patch. Yeah, modular MIDI get, I believe, is this one. So I just patched up. Oh yeah. Do I have any scaler here? I don't. I probably should use one. CV quantizer should do just fine. And let's drop some counter as well. Let's just hide this grid to make more space. As you can see, these recs, when they are not displaying inputs and outputs, they are stacking vertically. So if this vertical space is filled up, it just jumps to the next one. But I made this Euclidean sequencer in kinda 3 unit wide, so to speak. So there is kind of a standard width for these rec modules, and I use that multiple, like 3 times. Oh yeah, there is a bit different rules when you are using wires in this front end, so to speak. When you are clicking and dragging, you can already drag out the cable that's connected to it. So you instead use shift click to add another wire, so it's kind of backwards from the internal patching, but yeah, you get used to that. Let's see, but yeah, if I cycle clicking to this outlet, I can cycle through different wires, so it's kind of quicker to just drag it and place it somewhere else. So here I'm generating some CV signal. Let's say I need to constrain it to a certain range. I will use modular rex. I believe it's in values scale. Yeah, that should be the one. Yeah, so there's how do you call them, range faders. That's something I would really like to see in Bitwig's grid, actually. So you set minimum and maximum value here, and you can have them output just static values if you want to. Let's dive in, find and patch. So here's this range module. Currently it's displaying just min-max position values, which it's exposing to modular output. But if you expand it, you can also have min-max value, which can be like inputs from somewhere else or passed to something else. Position is like percentage of this whole fader, where it's at relative to its width, so to speak. Anyway, so this data that I'm now generating with counter, I want to constrain this range, then pass to the CV quantizer, select some scale, and now I can scale out. Don't need to really, but just in case I can output it here. And keep in mind, this scale out they named is just my idea of doing this trick. It's not like a specific input or output just suited for the scale. And this wire actually transmits not just one value, but a whole array, so to speak. So using have this concept of arrays. As you can see, there are a bunch of zeros, and in brackets here it shows total number of values this array have. Right. So you can pass by modular wire, and I don't know if there is any limit. Actually, you can totally pass like 9,000 values in single array, and you can do multi-channel wire like in VCV Rack currently, because audio is array in itself. So if you're using audio wire, like let's see, here's my incoming audio. You can see it has a number of values that is tied to my block size, and yeah, so that's array basically. So that's why you can pass multiple channels at once. Let's see, I need to pass this MIDI data somewhere. Which channel do I need to use? Yeah, loop MIDI port. Wow, that's high pitch. Let's try to use oh yeah, why is it so high? Whatever, let's use this one. Now we get some action. You can see this is a sort of piano roll in kind of literal meaning of it. And now I can unmute this. Basically it's passing notes in this scale and in this range of octaves. Which is kinda, you're eyeballing it with this kind of fader, but you could configure it to have specific numbers that would be tied to octaves or even specific notes. So like from 0 to 127. But no, I don't need to be strict like that, because I'm already using quantizers, so some notes will be restricted to certain notes and stuff like that. So what can I do with this counter? I can make it bounce or drop, and I can change how much it will increase each plus. So each gate will add a number, and this is defining how much it will add at once. So if I'm combining odd number with even number, I would have shifting patterns right here, which will cycle quite a number of times before looping around. And yeah, you could bounce as well. So it hits the ceiling and reflects back, and it does this over and over again. Which, yeah, you could sort of do that in Bitwig Grid if you use mirror phase, right? Yeah, Bitwig's counter module is not as easy to use as counter module inside Usine. because you have specific buttons for increase, decrease, preset to min, max, stuff like that. And in Bitwig, the current count number doesn't update until the reset, or rather, if you input reset trigger in grid, like say this input here, it won't actually reset the counter until new gate comes in, and that can be annoying, but I don't know, that's how it was designed. Let's actually use some preset here. It's not so dual. And yeah, what I can also do here is add another gate here. This link that I've created is not passing this second gate if first one is not active. I can decouple them and they will just generate gates independently. As you can see, second and third gates have relative node to the pitch input that I'm having, which is why it's useful to connect the scale output to input of the 3-gate device they created. You can kind of see this pattern appear in the nodes, just constrained to the specific nodes. And yeah, also relative velocity. And dots appear brighter if it's higher velocity. This range knob I'm using also as velocity for the first lane if there is no external input. I could use this LFO if I wanted to, but I don't need to actually. And yeah, this LFO currently modulates the number of pulses and also number of steps in this hi-hat sequences, so to speak. And I can create kind of swinging patterns if you want to. You can also desync it, freq fader, and choose specific frequency if you want this modulation. Kinda odd that it stays on same notes kinda. Maybe I should try to change scale or something. Almost like it doesn't listen to this scale. Well, it does, seems like. Alright, I should probably also use yeah, so what I'm doing is using this quick gate change nodes. Maybe I should use different gates for plus and minus. And even reset sometimes. kinda sounds like a very narrow space, like not even in pentatonic, but rather in some like it hits across multiple octaves instead of multiple notes. Yeah, I've changed the chromatic and it didn't really have it. So I'm not sure what's going on here. I probably messed up somewhere. That happens sometimes. And yeah, it would help just not changing this counter so quick. Yeah. Let's change to this kick. Now it seems to be working more correctly. Maybe it just was happening so that those gates, those really fast gates, just landed on specific notes, and I was just left out with other notes weren't fitting with the gate timing or something like that. Yeah, might be not obvious how it should work, and yeah, it's kind of part of the journey to try out different stuff. When you don't have specific idea, you have to get it somewhere. So generative is a good way to come up with something actually fresh and not derived from someone else's music. Not that it's wrong to take inspiration from others people's music, but yeah, sometimes it's good to just come up with your own ideas, conceptions, and try to make your devices or stuff, like build your instrument out of your own ideas. Maybe play some stuff that you're more familiar with. But yeah, sometimes I just arrive at tricks, like rediscovering the same tricks that some of the artists that I like made years ago. And one time when I created the video synth, it was actually quite similar to some stuff that Autekra did as Easter eggs, so to speak. So at some point it was discovered in some website that there were hidden links on YouTube playlists which were made with, I assume, maximum speed jitter. So it was like scanning images and perhaps converting them to either spectral information or wavetables. It was more on a spectral side by the sound of it. And what I was doing at the time when that was discovered, completely separate from this event, is a video synth of my own that would just slice the frames and create a wavetable out of a line of the frame, be it video or static image. So let's open up. Yeah. How do I make it shut up? I think I have my loop MIDI stuck a bit, but I think if I make it panic, yeah, it doesn't go away, but whatever. Yeah, so this is a video synth device, so to speak. You can see the video going on here in the corner. And there's XY pad basically, which selects either X on or Y axis slice. And yeah, here's HV mix slider, which chooses which slice it interprets, vertical or horizontal. And below you can see the result of it. Let's hide this, yeah, snapshot. I don't need snapshot on this patch specifically. There are 3 wavetables generated in lifetime in real time, and I have this amount, this floating orb, which mixes in more classic wave shape, and the shape will define which shape is mixed in. So let's take this more noisy image. If I add amount, you can see the sine wave applied, but here it's cut off a bit. That's because I'm using this shift WT wavetable effect, so to speak. So when it's applied, it shifts the wave, but also the point after the initial position can be inverted or flipped or even sorted. Well, if this sort button is pressed, then the whole table is sorted regardless of this slider, which is useful for some things like if you are making additive synthesizer, your pitch information needs to be in session, so no value is repeated. It all goes from lowest to highest. Or maybe there's just, you know, you want saw wave kind of shape. And yeah, dragging amount to the left also kind of squishes or pinches the wave that I'm applying here. There is sine wave, triangle wave, saw wave, square, and something else I don't remember exactly. And yeah, if it sounds noisy, what you can do is slow it down or filter it, actually. So that's something you can do to an array. Let's pull up some filter. Do I have actually a filter here? No, I don't think yes, I get it. Okay, so VCP, which is filter. I don't need stereo, just mono is fine. Let's drag it somewhat closer. Wavetable synthesizer. Like here maybe. So this VCO-WT takes the array that I've generated from the image and just oscillates it. So yeah, it's a wavetable oscillator. But before plugging it here, I could, let's say, use this input and then I'll use a double T. Why doesn't it work? It should work. Let's see what's going on inside. If anything is connected to this interface cables that should enable the patch. So those rec patches modules that come with Bitwig, they usually have this kind of thing in the logic. So if module is not used, so no cables connect to it, it doesn't use any CPU automatically. But in this case, I do want to actually use it. Maybe I should. No. What? Oh yeah. It doesn't always work the way you would expect it to. There is that. So this Moog filter doesn't seem to be happy with me inputting wavetables into it. So yeah, that's a bummer. Let's try another filter. Maybe digital one will do. Still don't see any movement at all. Should be just regular filter. Yeah, this actually outputs something. Like if I am say with oscilloscope right here, it does show the waveform result, and yeah, you can shape it. So you get the idea. Why does it not accept this wavetable out? Maybe because the array size is different from what this oscillator expects. Let's check it. So this is my oscillator. It doesn't seem to be happy with what it's getting. Oh, it could be because I am in data CV mode, actually. Maybe I need to change it to audio, which shouldn't matter, actually, at all. Oh yeah. Min out. Well, maybe it should be -1. No. Doesn't change anything, really. So yeah, some things don't work as expected and need some more investigation, but as you can see, we do get some data, and if I can get it out with this modular out, for some reason. Oh yeah, maybe I could change the output from audio to data CV. No, it didn't help as well. And dry wet also doesn't help. So yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, another way you could potentially. So it seems like this crossfade module is somehow blocking this wavetable. Let's try to just recreate button. Same parameters. No, still doesn't work. If I just bypass this crossfade. Straight out. Yeah, so there's some problem with the crossfade. As soon as I get rid of it, but sometimes it's stuck, and it's not because of CPU usage, it's something else. So this situation right here could be due to this smooth parameter or something else. Maybe I should report us back. Thankfully, developer of Usine is quite responsive to this. And yeah, you can smooth out all the bumps in your noisy wavetable using just filter. And if I'm not mistaken, Vital actually uses kind of similar technique on wavetables. You can use it on the wavetable editor, that's in Vital, or in one of the warp modes. So yeah, it's kind of shame that dry wet doesn't work. Actually, it did before. You could get some middle ground between filtered resonant wavetable and this steppy, more raw wavetable. What happens if I actually just go out and connect another wire to wavetable? Yeah, it mixes those two together, actually. So you can do that if you want to. And adjust and the gain with this range, I guess. Yeah, what else did I do? So this was kind of a demo of this specific module. You can do much more exciting sounds if you find the right settings, so to speak. But let's move on to other things. What did I make before? Yeah, there was this physics-based sequencer, but it used some VSTs that I don't have. But I could redirect it to Bitwig actually. So yeah, there is that. This one. There is no more recent version of it. It should be this one. So yeah, it gives me error that I don't have some plugin. Yeah, I don't. So let's disable the patch and use. Yeah, just MIDI output. So I remember I should use port 2. And here I'm setting the specific channel, MIDI channel, that is expected from this sequence. And yeah, let's start with just one channel. There is a drum machine inside the Usine, and first thing we need to do is set this gun position and fire the particles. Now you see some particles juggling and some boxes which you can drag and resize in the shape you want when they cross paths with specific particle. They generate node, and when they stay cross sectioned, they will sustain node. And of course, it's all quantized if you want to. Yeah, it can basically generate chords, stuff like that. You can even apply swing to it, and of course scale. So yeah, I'm already receiving some notes here. Let's add another track, and yeah, first of all, we don't use channel filter. You know what? It's been a while that I thought I need to save default preset with filter completely empty, because every time I'm pulling out this channel filter, I needed to listen to one specific or maybe two specific channels. So it's a good idea to leave it empty in default setting. Let's add another one. This time we will listen to channel 2 and let's see which presets do I have. Try. There's a lot of presets that I made, but not all of them are suited to be played with by notes. Some are sequences. This will do. And so we'll go back to Usine and use this one. So where are my devices? Loop MIDI port 2. Let's drag it output. Oh yeah, I should enable auto monitor. Not auto, but monitor by default. So it's still receiving notes on channel 1 because you see we got in Bitwig in the track settings channel from all to 1. We need to change it to same. Now I'm receiving correct notes. And yeah, you see these sliders? These are also ranges for notes. Let's try to speed up BPM and add another layer. Let's use this one. I actually think I used this for my grid track that I made during the Bitwig 3.0 beta testing. It's up on SoundCloud and on my audios page. So it seems like channel 3 is rarely generating any notes. I should probably slow down those particles because they are zooming around at some incredible speed, because currently I have it on bounce on vertical wall and warp on horizontal, but it seems like it's doing the other way around. If I use the bounce and wall absorption, then these particles will settle down. What happens here actually is there is a force field, and those knobs show the direction these particles will follow in each cell, so to speak. So this field is like 4 by 4 vectors of force. Yeah, I don't remember if I think I've designed it to be exactly 4x4 because it's kind of pain in the ass to add more knobs like that. They're kind of custom made, so each control is an actual control. And yeah, you could simplify the process of duplicating them in this matrix arrangement, but I don't think I did that. And yeah, there is an option to change this field all the time or not. And so yeah, the point is those particles would circle around in semi-predictable patterns. So it's not a sine wave like or triangle or a fixed wave on the output, but it's not random. So there is some system to it, and that's why modulators like these are appealing, and I would really love to see something like that, physics-based modulators or generators inside Bitwig Studio. Well, yeah, they can be a bit tough on CPU, not on this case actually, it's just 8% on the CPU, the whole thing going on. And yeah, of course you could crank up to a much bigger number. So, what else can I do with this? I think there was some slider to make this movement more, I don't know, not as smooth or something. But yeah, I don't really remember how it was. So, these buttons right here, I think they are supposed to generate a whole chord. Yeah, now that I've pressed some of them, you could hear it. And yeah, here's the one thing, something interesting that you can do in Usine. There are FFT modules that you could play around. So what this does, let's just mute Bitwig for a second here, and I don't remember what exactly this is mapped for. Let's see, our bins are empty, so what does control this? Envelope follower, okay. Let's just cut this connection for a moment. And also dry wet control. Where is it? Yeah, like here. So it's like a freeze effect if you push release time really far. So I guess in a way it's kind of similar to Ableton's new vector reverb, or how was it called? And yeah, you could increase size of the FFT for, yes, better precision. And it's actually, yeah, output size a bit halved. There's release times, like, but it should also have an attack, so to speak. Should be able to do that. So yeah, this is attack time. Let's try to adjust attack time instead. What will happen? Well, yeah, basically kills the transients. And you can go crazy with 65,000 bins of FFT. Which seems to smear the sound way more. Let's try the other way around, at a small number. So this sounds more like a granular cloud of some sort. And yeah, there is actually a granulator module in Usine you could play around with, where you could set up windowing, custom windowing, and stuff like that. Yeah, seems like 2000 is sweet spot, this kind of effect. So yeah, the appeal of this Usine Bitwig setup is you could assemble MIDI data using much faster and easier way that you could do in Grid, resorting to devices like Replacer and such stuff. Let me try. I think I had the preset with the chain with the sequencer. Can't find it. I don't think it was just Grid. It was supposed to be chain, but yeah, all I see is my additive synthesizer presets. Those were quite fun experiments. Let's look it up. So basically I made both drum sequencer in Grid and note sequencers, but maybe this one by generative. It could be generative but not by Bitwig means. Let's see. Oh yeah, it seems to use using bridge, so yeah, There is a VST that I'm using all the time for generating drum sequences, and yeah, there are only synthesizers here from the grid itself. I wouldn't remember right away which project I used for this kind of stuff, just to show how painful it is currently to use grid for MIDI output. This I believe I used for stream where I showed how to use the whole concept of creating sequencer in grid. And yeah, you have to do a lot of silly stuff like putting a bunch of layers with devices like DC offset, replacer, channel map, channel filters, note receivers. Yeah, you can do that, but it's kind of pain in the ass. But it's doable. And if we disable this microtonic, which uses its own sequencer internally, what we hear here is not all that exciting. So let's wrap it up for tonight. I didn't go really deep inside Usine this time, not that I expected really anything. I just kind of wanted to test it out, the idea of fleshing out why I'm using Usine and Bitwig side by side. Not that I'm doing it often, but yeah, there are some tools inside Usine that just aren't available in the Bitwig, and they complement each other really well. You can basically do anything you could do in Maximus P with this kind of combination and do it in a more human way rather than Maximus P environment, which in my opinion it's not all that different from just live coding or just coding. So you insert lines of code and they appear as modules, and you're supposed to understand how to wire it, where to wire it. All the inputs, outputs aren't really labeled all that well, and yeah. Basically Maximus P didn't really click with me, so I chose this environment instead. Well, let's really wrap it up, and bye. I hope you've learned anything new. Till